Our world is rife with secrets and mysteries. The more we learn about nature of land and sea and everything in between, we also learn that we don't know much about the world. From amazing creatures to man-made buildings that leave us in awe in the present day, there is still so much that we are trying to figure out and understand about our history. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at mysterious and ancient discoveries. Palpa Flat Mountain. Seen as one of the most convincing pieces of evidence for that of ancient civilizations having once possessed advanced technologies is that of the archaeological discovery of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Ancient astronaut theorists have often posited that perhaps the gods of ancient cultures that supposedly descended from the stars were not actually gods, but rather advanced alien life forms. This would make sense given the fact that many cultures directly write about how the gods came from the stars or on machines that could fly. Interestingly enough, the ancient Nazca tribes also seem to hold a similar belief to their religion, and the evidence in the area only shows this further that it could very well be the case. As many different pilots flew over the area of the ancient tribes, a shocking discovery was made in regards to what they could see from the sky. Lines drawn out in the desert were made visible from the sky that appeared to be created over many miles of distance. In fact, the lines were detailed images and navigation trails that would have helped possible aircraft find areas to land and travel to. This was made only more interesting as located nearby these large creations is that of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Located on the Palpa Flat Mountain is a completely flat mountainside as if flattened down by vast ancient technologies. This is made more peculiar as it seems to be the only flat mountain in the region, with a top that looks artificially cut from its base. Located on this flat top are lines and creations that pilots have often mistaken for a landing strip for aircraft. This has led many of the ancient astronaut theorist communities to believe that perhaps the tribe helped their gods by creating these lines in the sand that were only visible from the skies. These lines could be used similar to that as modern-day concrete arrows used to point towards landing strips and other aviation important signals. This would be a plausible explanation as the lines on the ground are not visible and would not be able to be used religiously or for any other important purpose without the ability to see it from the sky. Interestingly enough, the lines seem to be very old and ancient and provide proof as to the tribe's advanced knowledge in geometry in order to create massive images in the sand that they could never see themselves. Additionally, these pieces appear to be images of things the tribes held with utmost importance, such as that of different kinds of animal life and strange symbols that are nearly impossible to understand. Today, experts have no explanation as to the cause for the creation of the lines or the purpose they serve outside of both a religious connotation and assistance in aviation. The mystery of the Rongo Rongo. The next mystery from Easter Island is that of the Rongo Rongo. Rongo Rongo is a form of writing that was discovered by Eugene Ayrode, who arrived at Easter Island as a missionary in 1864. During his time on the island, he came across a shocking discovery. Every hut was home to a piece of wood or a stick that had hieroglyphic characters written all over it. The drawings depict many different animals that are carved in with sharp stones. While these items are held onto, no one pays much attention to them in particular, which left Ayrode wondering if there's significant meaning behind what's written. The name itself is interesting and could possibly mean more than originally thought. The name is from Rapa Nui language and means to recite, to declaim, to chant out. Since the wooden tablets were mostly found somewhat damaged with parts burned and weathered over the years, it's been challenging to determine what they truly mean. In order to gain a clear perspective on these ancient artifacts, it's important to know just what period of time they came from. Unfortunately, it's been near impossible to determine a specific date, and the closest experts have landed on is the 13th century, which would have been when forest clearing happened on the island. How did they stumble upon that time period? One of the glyphs appeared to be an Easter Island palm, which had disappeared from the island in 1650. That means the scripts must be at least that old. Further examination pointed to an even later time period. Taking the timeline into account, it's easy to see how decoding the glyphs has been a demanding and strenuous task. When looking at the Rongo Rongo under the impression that it's writing, many other factors impact uncovering what was being communicated. There is still a limited number of illustrations, text to examine, and the lack of other sources with the same writing to provide context. With so little information surrounding the Rongo Rongo, it's challenging to come to any conclusions. One theory has proposed that it could be proto-writing, meaning that the symbols may provide meaning but might not necessarily be linguistic content. Under this theory, the Rongo Rongo may have simply been used as a decoration or to help with memory. Whilst we still have no answers when it comes to the Rongo Rongo, it's interesting to see how it could have been used to pass down stories or events to the next generations. With time, we may come across more information. Have researchers found a 300-million-year-old screw embedded into rock? Finding fossilized remains in ancient rock is one thing, but how about a 100-million-year-old screw that isn't even from this planet? A Russian team sent to investigate a meteorite crater in the region of Kalaga, western Russia, only expected to find space rock and rubble, but instead found something even more extraterrestrial. Near to the crater hole, the team happened upon a rock dislodged and partially fragmented by the impact of the nearby meteorite. What they found in there was a very strange object, the curiousness of which needed further scientific analysis to confirm exactly what they had found. A paleontological analysis was performed, and it was confirmed that in the center of the rock itself was a screw, not placed there by human design, but rather strongly embedded within, suggesting it had fallen to the ground at some point, only to be encased over time. Tests showed that the iron atoms of the screw and silicon rock atoms spread and fused together, confirming that the screw and rock had been in each other's company for a significant time. It was also concluded that the screw was not the result of natural process, but indeed artificially fashioned. What was even more strange, however, was what geologists said about the age of the rock. Radiocarbon dating placed it to be over 300 million years old. Needless to say, this was a long time before any humans, or their tools for that matter, had ever been on this planet. So how did it get there? Nigel Watson, an expert of the extraterrestrial, believes this could be ancient evidence of aliens visiting Earth a long time ago, with the screw being a part of their landing craft on this planet. This screw could actually be part of many reports that talk of spheres, toothed wheels, manufactured bots and footprints embedded in rocks and stones hundreds of millions of years old. Government scientists insist that this is actually the result of a natural formation, even perhaps being an ancient marine animal that bears some similarity in its looks. However, with this particular rock formation secured in a research facility beyond independent geological and archaeological specialists, it is clear that we will not be getting to the truth of the matter anytime soon. Richard III's DNA raises questions over Queen's ancestry. Following the discovery of his remains more than 500 years after his death, scientists discovered that King Richard III's DNA shows evidence of illegitimacy in the British royal family ancestry. Since the news first broke out in 2012, the same staggering question continues to boggle the minds of many up to this day. Is Queen Elizabeth II the rightful heir to the throne? King Richard III lived in the 15th century. His reign was rather short as it only lasted for 2 years due to his sudden death in the hands of his enemies at the Battle of Bosworth. The iconic ruler is known to be the last king of England to die in a battle that marked the end of the Plantagenet era and paved the way for the Tudor period. His reputation speaks both of his good and bad sides. Some say that he was a great ruler who wanted to make life fairer and more bearable, for ordinary people. On the flip side, others say that he was so despicable that he murdered his nephews to protect his throne. Regardless of which account is accurate, scientists who studied his life believe one thing to be true: that the human remains unearthed under a car park in downtown Leicester back in 2012 is indeed King Richard III. This confirmation is the foundation of a huge controversy surrounding the reigning royal family's claim to the throne. A team of DNA experts and genealogists from Leicester University studied the remains of Richard III. Since he did not have a successor, they compared DNA samples with his sister Anne of York's living descendants. While King Richard III's DNA matched with his female ancestors, it was not a match with the males. There appears to be a break in the family tree. This means that somewhere along the lineage, a royal wife cuckolded a king and gave birth to another man's child. As to whom exactly was the illegitimate royalty, scientists could not say for sure at this time. This did not come as a surprise to a lot of genealogists though, as they are well aware of the constant 1% to 2% chance of false paternity. There is also the possibility that there is more than one break in the lineage, or that more than one royal wife kept a secret. Queen Elizabeth II is a descendant of King Henry VII, who is one of the 5 Tudor monarchs. If the break in the lineage occurred between John of Gaunt and his father Edward III, who both lived in the early 14th century, then the Tudors' claim to the throne might be illegitimate. According to Professor Kevin Schurer of Leicester University, given the passage of time since this probably medieval royal scandal happened, the reigning queen is safe and her claim to the throne should not be questioned. Almost a decade after this discovery, the Queen remains unshaken. By far no controversy or theory has succeeded in dethroning the royal family, and the living descendants of the House of Tudor continue to reign. Giant monoliths at Baalbek. In the modern city of Baalbek, Lebanon, are several massive monoliths known to be the largest in the world. Baalbek was under Roman rule for a period of time, in which it was referred to as Heliopolis, or City of the Sun. The stones were cut and carved to be used for one of the grandest and largest temples to the Roman god Jupiter, known by the Greeks as Zeus. The temple features one of the most awe-inspiring megalithic foundations, consisting of 27 enormous limestone blocks. 3 of the largest make up the base, and are known as the Trilithon, with each weighing at least 1,000 tons. Aside from those 3 are 2 other monoliths, larger and heavier than the ones actually used for the temple. One of those was the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. The other is known as the Stone of the South and is even heavier. The Stone of the Pregnant Woman was first thought to be the largest monolith discovered. Analyses of the size and weight of the enormous monolith in Baalbek, Lebanon, by the German Archaeological Institute revealed that the megalithic block was one of the largest ever discovered. Its name comes from stories and legends that a pregnant woman tricked villagers into believing that she would be able to move it, if they fed her until she gave birth. Other stories say that the name comes from legends that pregnant jinn were assigned the task of cutting and moving the stones. There are even some who believe that a woman who touches the stone raises her chances at fertility. The blocks originated from a limestone quarry nearby. The monoliths are thought to date back at least 2,000 years, or to around 27 BC. Although they were probably intended to be used for a temple to Jupiter, these stones never made it to the building, laying at a distance of 900 meters away from the Heliopolis temple complex. Experts believe this is because they turned out to be too heavy to transport. Researchers also discovered later that a crack in the Stone of the Pregnant Woman must have been the reason why it, specifically, was never transported. The Stone of the South was discovered after the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, as it rests underneath the latter and was mostly buried under a few feet of dirt. The Stone of the South is now the largest known ever carved by human hands, at 1,242 tons. These monoliths are thought to have probably been cut in the same way as the masonry used in the Pont de Garde, a Roman aqueduct in southern France. Each piece would have been split from a larger expanse of limestone along natural fissures. Because they would have been too heavy to lift, they were likely pulled using a capstan, like a human-driven winch, or using a sledge. Despite these stones being a possible disappointment to their carvers, as they turned out to be useless for the purposes of the temple, the stone of the pregnant woman and the stone of the south both set a world record for the biggest boulders ever discovered. It is incredible to imagine that people in the past, with their limited technologies and resources, were able to cut and carve such massive blocks of stone in order to raise temples and monuments. These discoveries and inventions all remain a testament to humans and their incredible abilities to create, innovate, and develop tools and creations that leave their marks. Although we may never have all the answers to how these monuments came about, or what technologies were used to raise such profound monuments, we can be quite certain of the abilities and marksmanship of those who lived before us. But what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.